my own hometown. Stranger.
Howdy folks, Little John here, and today we're doing the taste testing on the US-05 versus MJ M44 yeast experiment. This one's been sitting in the fridge in the fermenter for a while. Been waiting to do this. Is an experiment I've been waiting to do for quite a while, so I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty pleased I finally got to the point where I can do a taste on this one. I know there's always a lot of questioning on forums and whatnot about, you know, which is better. Is US-05 better than M44 or vice versa, or, you know, you see a lot of comments about different lag times and things like that. So I thought, well, let's do a direct comparison. So just to refresh what I've done with this one. This was brewer, actually the first brew I did on the Grainfather, which was a practice leading up to a demo day with the local country brewer store here in Young. What I brewed up is a slightly revised version of my Christmas Pale Ale, which is a beer I know reasonably well. We brewed that up and then split into two fermenters and brewed it in two separate batches. Now I can get rid of the bottles out of the way. Now these bottles come up quite carved. I did use I only used a carb drop in each to prime them. They come up quite carved, which is why I don't normally use a full carb drop in a free 30ml bottle. But there we have it. So obviously we need to be doing a blind test on this one. Don't want to know what was going on, so we've made sure that happens. As I said, fermented to two batches, and we've split them. And for the sake of the experiment today, I had four bottles in the fridge, two of each, two of the 05, two of the M44. And my daughter has come out only a few minutes ago, and she's taken the four bottles from the fridge, picked three of them, opened them, and sat them down with the lids sitting on the table face down, so I don't know which one is which. So we have two of one and one of the other. I don't know which they are. So obviously one is different, but which ones I don't know. Hence, blind testing. I don't know exactly what the difference is. So I'm not going to get leniency one way or the other. But either way, they've all poured with good carb. The two on either side here, which might not show up quite so readily on the camera, are both hazy, and the middle one is quite clear. So yeah, blatantly clearer than the other there. So there, straight away, there is a clear difference. Probably doesn't take much of a genius to go, well, that's probably the odd one out. But as I said, don't know which one it is. And again, this is what, you know, they quite often do tasting in you know, dark glasses, opaque glasses you can't actually see, but I don't have any, so this is the best I'm going to get. So I'm just going to start having a bit of a suck on these while we sort of have a look at what the fermentation was like. As I said, this is pretty close to my standard, you know, Christmas Pale Ale. It's an Australian Pale Ale. Malt bills mainly was J White, you know, J White traditional ale. 8% wheat, 4% carawhel, a little bit of dextrose, about 4% again, and 1% of Cara aroma, just a little bit of extra there. We mashed that at, we mashed it in 54, we ramped to 64, held that for 40 minutes, and then ramped up to 72 degrees for 10 minutes. Done a sparge. 60-minute boil. 21 grams of pride of ringwood at 60 minutes for the bittering. Give myself something to wipe me. Yeah, we're there. There's 15 grams of Galaxy at 10 minutes and 15 grams of Citra at 2 minutes. So all up we're looking at about 32 IBU, and ABV ended up, well, original gravity was 1048. We finished up with a final gravity of, where is it? Well, this is where we get slightly different. So, okay, so original gravity was 1048. Pitched 1 packet of yeast onto each batch, which was 11 litres, so a gram a litre, so this is equivalent of your 2 packets per batch, and that was rehydrated. And the brew, the actual fermentation was similar but different. After 24 hours, both batches had a slight krausen developed. The 05 had dropped a point. The M44 had not moved after 24 hours. After 48 hours, the 05 had a good inch krausen on it, and it dropped to 1038, so it dropped 9 points. So a total of 10 points in those 2 days. The M44, which had a much, about 1.5 inches krausen, had more krausen than the US-05, and was sitting at 1036. So it had dropped 12 points in the last 24 hours, and was now 2 points under the 05. Day 3, and this is where things really started to become quite different looking with the ferment. The US-05 still had that same 1 inch krausen, hadn't really changed. The sample was quite gassy and frothy, and gravity had dropped to 1022. At the same time, the M44 now had about a 4 inch krausen. The dead space in the fermenter was full, 15 litre fermenter with 11 litres in it, and the headspace was full. It wasn't pushing out of the airlock, but it wasn't far from doing that. The sample itself didn't have a lot of gas in it and really had no froth on top, but it was at 1022 as well, the same as the 05. And that sort of continued for the next couple of days, with the 05 having a small krausen and dropping. Day 4, the krausen on the M44 had dropped a little bit, was still a lot bigger than the 05, and was lagging behind just a little bit on the gravity. End of day 5, krausen had dropped on the 05. It was at 1010. The krausen was still dropping on M44, was still about 1.5 inches, and was at 1012, so it was all but finished. Day 6, both were on 1010. 05 was pretty much finished any activity. The airlock was levelled out, there was no sort of, the krausen had dropped. The M44 still had 1 inch of krausen, and the airlock was still ticking away. I let it go there for another week, actually 8 days, so in the end of 14 days, so 2 weeks in the fermenter, the 05 was at 1009, and the M44 was at 1008, so it dropped an extra point, which in the big picture is very little. So both we're sitting around that 75-76% attenuation. I even probably creeping up close to 78 with the M44. So right where, what is expected. The thing that surprised me the most was how much more active the M44 was during that actual fermentation. It looked like it was fermenting harder. The gravity didn't drop any quicker. It fluctuated a little bit from day to day from one to the other, but it was very similar, so there was not much difference there. But the M44, I took some samples with it didn't seem to be as active in the liquid itself, in the actual wort, but the krausen was much bigger and the airlock activity was a little bit higher. So it was reversing on what the A5. The A5 was a lower krausen, but seemed to have much more activity in the actual wort itself. So that was interesting. But main thing I really noticed was that as for M44 lagging behind a US-05 with starting off, I didn't see it. Yes, there was no change after 24 hours, but the A5 had only dropped 1 point anyway. Both had very similar krausens. It's like just that thin layer on top. So both had started. The yeast was doing its thing. The M44 hadn't started, obviously, to eat sugars at that point. But instead, after 24 hours, they were both very similar. The M44 had a slightly bigger krausen and had eaten a little bit more sugar. So it did kick in a little bit harder once it got going. So from that point of view, the actual ferment profile, really very little difference between the two. One hasn't really finished out any quicker. I don't know how long that M44 took to get from the 1010 to the 1008. But I'm sure it wouldn't have taken 8 days. So it was probably finished around day 7, day 8 at the outside. And that's taken account. I did not raise the temperature on this ferment. It sat on 18 degrees the whole time. I did not raise it at any point to quicken up the ferment, to finish it off. So we'll just let the do its thing. So at 14 days it was bottled, and it's been sitting. It was bottled on the 3rd of the 3rd, so it's now been, it's the 6th today, so it's been just over a month. What's that, 20, 31, about 34 days, so not quite 5 weeks. These bottles have been in the fridge for probably a week. I think I put them in last Thursday before I went away on the Easter break, so with 4 weeks of carving and then a week in the fridge. So let's focus on what we're actually getting in the glass. And looking at them, apart from where we did have a bit of a variation on the head initially, and that can come down to slight differences in the side of the carb drop. One glass might be a little bit cleaner than the other, but all three have got themselves a nice decent head. Carbonation is pretty much the same, and again, as I said, one carb drop in each day, you would expect that, but it's that visual difference, and that's surprises me. Whichever way, it doesn't matter. I would have expected all these beers to be relatively clear. Now, when I bottled this, I put half of each batch into a keg, into a 9 litre keg, which has gone in the fridge. And I had one taste of that probably 2 weeks ago. And I found with that, and the same thing I'm finding with these. And this isn't anything to do with the yeast, this is just with the process and using that Grainfather. These beers are much heavier body and much sweeter than I would have anticipated and I would normally get with this recipe. As I said, it was a 64 degree mash, and what I found with that Grainfather and with the follow-up brew I did on the demo day down at the Crunchy Brewer, and I've seen it mentioned a few times in a couple of posts and things, is that temperature in the Grainfather when brewing, and this seems to carry over with Grainfather or Robo Brew, that temperature tends to be up because of where the temperature sensor is. The temperature sensor's down under the mash filter, so it tends to. The belief is that it's showing a different temperature, and I did recognise that when getting to a boil, the sensor was saying the temperature was actually reading as 97 degrees, which means it's out by 3 degrees. If that is relative right through the whole brew, then one would assume that technically this beer has been mashed at 67 degrees. And that's a huge difference from the profile you would expect with 64. So, and again, I've tasted the brew I did yesterday from that batch with the Grainfather at the demo, and it was the same thing. It was much heavier than I expected. So, and that's coming through in these again. So it's not as crisp and as light as I would have had planned them to be, and how they would normally come out. But that is, like I said, that's not anything to do with the yeast, but it's just an observation with the Grainfather. Because I think there's going to be people out there also looking at how that Grainfather brew went, because that was tied in with the original. But okay, that aside, tasting. I mean, and you know, and this is going to be, people are going to jump on this a little bit, but that beer is different to those two. And it's easy to say, yeah, well, it looks different, so you can obviously it's going to be different. But as I said, whichever use it is different, I don't know. But those two beers on the end are a little sweeter and got a heavier body. Now, this is hard to say exactly where this is coming from, and I know there's always, you know, confirmation bias and stuff like that. And seeing that beer was obviously different, it's going to be easy for me to say, well, that one tastes different. But that being in mind, and as I said, not knowing exactly what's what and having no real impact on one way or another, which way is the best way, that beer is lighter in body. It's not as sweet. It's almost like that's closer in body to what I would be expecting with the temperature. So yeah, it's definitely different. That's cleaner, it's crisper. Yeah. It's going to take that glass away for a minute. Clearly those two are the same one. They're the same beer. Taste wise, they are the same. Taste wise, they are different. So, without checking just at the moment, what I am expecting from the tasting is that beer will be the US-05. Sorry, the M44. Reason being, that beer is finished at a lower gravity. To me, the lower gravity would show as a slightly less sweet, cleaner finish. It's not, as I said, it's not a lot, it's only 1 point, but that, looking at the numbers and looking and tasting that, that's what I'm expecting to see. I expect to turn that lid over and find that that's the M44. I could be wrong. We'll find out very shortly. Smells, yeah, pretty much identical. That, again, that's probably got a little bit, still that little bit cleaner. It's hard to describe exactly what I mean with the smell. But that's, the smell on this is, it's bigger, it's deeper. This is, it's the same. The smell, yeah, the malt, that little bit of fruit that's there, is the same in both of them, but this one's just hasn't quite got the same. It's a bit more subtle. It's not much. So let's have a look. Let's check this one over here first. So this is one I've moved to the side. The lid there says 22x. Now I've marked these lids with an X and a dot, and 22x M44. So that's the glass was on the left, that one. So looking at it, logic tells me this one should also be M44 22x, and it is. So our two cloudier beers with the sweeter, bigger taste, bigger body is the M44. So that beer, that goes against my assumption with the gravity. So that's actually a lower finish than this one. So obviously that's got to be our US-05. 22 dot, that's the US-05. So higher gravity than that. But it tastes lighter. And with that lighter taste, it's just a little bit cleaner. So that's just flipped everything on its head a little bit. That's it. I mean, that assumption that I have that was the M44 was purely only from that gravity standpoint. So that's sitting aside, the US-05 has done a better job. I mean, whichever way it is, that is a better result than that. Now, that's reasonably clear now that it's settled a little bit, but I mean, that for 4 weeks in the bottle, 5 weeks in the bottle, no cold crash, there was no finings used in the boil, so that's nice and clear. That's not a bad wrap up for the Grainfather, as I said, other than the little bit of temperature which is causing, you know, the beer not to be quite as where it could be. But as you can see, both beers are, yeah, they've retained a little bit of head. If anything, the M44 is holding a slightly better head, and that 05 was fairly fizzed up when it first poured. Righto, so we had a camera failure, so I'm starting here, not exactly sure where I finished from, but we'll just quickly wrap this up. from this experiment, what we've done today, I would certainly say US-05 is your preferred yeast. So for your lighter styles, pale ales, if you're doing a fake lager, even like golden ale, US-05. I think this M44 is going to work well in a more big bodied, and say more of a, even an English pale ale is more malt focused, a bigger golden ale, things like that, like even pushing into your porters and things like that, where the malt is more the drive. The M44 is going to work fine. But yeah, for today, from this experiment, US-05 is the choice. So you can use that for however you want. So as I said, M44 has got it's holding a better head than what the 05 is. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, both yeast do a good job. They've both done good job. I think the US-05 wins slightly on this one. And for this brew, from me going forward, if I'm not using a liquid yeast, I'll be sticking with the 05, which is a handy thing because it's something like I can access it locally. The MJ Mangrove Jacks is a little bit harder for me to get. I can get 05 at the local shop. So that's that for today. I will be doing the same experiment, and I'll be taking the US-05 and comparing that to the BRY 97. I have it on order. I'm waiting for it to come in. Should be here early next week, but that might be a little bit down the track before I do that actual experiment itself. It has been asked for to compare that as well, and I've been interested in doing it. I have done, the first time I did this Christmas Pale Ale, I did do it with a BRY 97, and it was a good result. And I've personally don't think I've had quite as good a beer from year to year as I did that first year. So I'm interested to see how the BRY goes compared to the US. But that's another day. So for now, I'm happy with that. Hit the subscribe button. It's down there somewhere in the bottom, little red button. If you haven't clicked on it already, click it. You'll get notified when a new video comes up, when something new's going on. If you got any questions or comments, put them down the bottom. Go for it. I'll answer anything. If any suggestions for other videos or comparisons you might be interested in seeing, put them down there. We'll see what happens. There's always some sort of experimenting going on. But that's it for today. So US-05 versus M44. Done and dusted. So until I see you again, good brewing.